What's up, y'all? Sean here. Today we'll be making a custom ranked system. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can get the full code from my Patreon in the description below, and also use code shaanprime in the Fortnite item shop. Thanks for the support. Before we set up the devices, we need to create the bar sequence that we need for the progress bar. Create a new folder called progress bar. Inside the folder, we're going to put all the materials we need and then create the progress bar material as well. We need a bar full PNG and a bar empty PNG. Here is the bar empty texture, and then the bar full texture is this. And you can make this in Photoshop or get them online. You can also find all these assets in my Patreon. Next, you want to right click and create a new material and call it progress bar. Create a material parameter collection by right clicking, going to material, selecting material parameter collection. Double click the material parameter collection, add a new element under the scalar parameter, set it to 0 and call the name progress. Double click on the progress bar and now we will set this up. I'll show you the completed version and we'll walk through it. Here is the material for the progress bar. We'll go over the main textures and fill in the blanks as we go along. You have the texture sample for the progress bar and the texture sample for the progress bar empty. Connect the empty texture bar to the opacity mask of your material. For the full texture, connect that to a lerp node. Connect the lerp node to the progress bar final color. Create a constant and connect that to the lerp node. Create a named reroute node connecting the output to the lerp node. For the second part, create a parameter collection, 4 constants, a remapped value range, a texture coordinate, a mask with only red selected, 1 minus, addition node, a floor node, the input of your named reroute. In your material parameter collection, set the name to progress, add an array element and set it to 0. Then in the material, select the parameter name progress. In your material, make sure that the material domain is set to user interface and the blend mode is mask. All right, so the next item we're creating is a widget blueprint. Right click, go to user interface and click widget blueprint. I already have one here, so I'll click on the HUD progress bar and you see we used a canvas panel. You would drag it into the HUD progress bar, and then we used an image as well. You would drag that into the canvas panel. Click on the image. When you first drag it in, it'll be a white box like this. Then you click on the image on the right hand side and select progress bar, and you can adjust this to the scale that you want. I find that this works just fine for what I need, and then compile and save. The next thing we want to create is a level sequence. I have one here, the bar sequence, but you would right click on cinematics and click on level sequence. Click on this one. You would want to click on track, material parameter collection track, and select the MPC progress bar that you made earlier. Click on the plus to add a parameter and select the progress parameter. In the sequence or in the keyframes, make sure at keyframe 0 you set the progress to 0, and then your ending keyframe, mine is 10 seconds, I set the keyframe to 1, and then click on save and your sequencer has been saved. Here's the UEFN interface and the devices that we need. We have the trigger. Make sure that the trigger is set to triggered by damage. We have the cinematic sequence device. Make sure the sequence selected is the bar sequence. Visibility set to instigator only. Force keep state checked. The HUD message device, we want to show on round false, and then we want to set the widget HUD widget to the HUD progress bar that we made, and show for duration disabled. Make sure that it's set to custom top left. For the tracker, set that to score. Assign on game start, true. You don't need a tracker title or description. Amount to increment the event, set that to 1. Show on HUD, no. And off. Use persistence, check, autosave, and autoload checked. And connect all those to the creative device, the tracker, trigger, sequence, HUD. Remember, for multiplayer, you need 1 for each player. If your map has 10 players, you need 10 sequencers and 10 HUD message devices, all configured the same way. You can essentially just duplicate these until you have however many you need for your player, and that should be it. And you would connect them to your creative device. Alright, here's the code. A localization functions to convert strings to messages, an array of rank definitions, an array of rank scores, the scores needed to progress to the next rank, an array of rank textures, a function to get the player rank based on the track value, which then returns an index, a function to create the UI for each player. I'm not going to cover all these specifically, but we are creating widgets and placing them on the player's screen. These parameters have to deal with alignment. Experiment to see what position works for you, but the most important is the widget. If you click on one of these structs here, you can look at the digest for additional parameters and options. To place the widget on the screen, reference these coordinates. Y goes from top to bottom, 0 being the top and 1 being bottom, and X goes from left to right, 0 being left and 1 being right. Your widget placement will fall somewhere between these values. The canvas utilizes the anchors to position the widget on the screen based on the coordinates mentioned earlier. Then we place the first widget we created and then add another canvas slot and place the second widget we created. In the creative device class, you have your player's map of type agent and custom player, references to the UEFN devices for the rank system. Remember, for multiplayer, each player needs their own device, a cinematic sequence device and a HUD message device, and you need to assign 1 of each to each player. Subscribe to the player spawn event and triggered event for testing. This tracker is based on score. In your game, you would need to increment the tracker and update the player rank based on your needs. In the triggered event callback, I increment the tracker and update the player rank. Remember, this logic might be different in your game. In the spawn event callback, I create a new instance of the player and add it to the player's map. Then I call the init player function on the new player with the tracker value. In the custom player class, these are required to create a new instance of the custom player, an agent, a player UI, player sequencer, and a HUD message device. Variable definitions for the texture block, text block are defined here that we want to use for the ranked canvas. In the init function, we create the ranked canvas and pass in the variable definitions for the text block and texture rank defined earlier. Call the update rank function with the tracker value. In the update rank function, call get player rank with the tracker value. Based on the rank, we want to get the target, the rank definition, and a ranked image. We set the texture rank to the ranked image. Here, there's a conditional to check if the rank is between 0 and 7. If it is, we get the old rank because we're using only 1 tracker. When we rank up, the tracker doesn't reset to 0. So to account for this, I'm subtracting the previous rank to simulate resetting the progress bar on each rank up. If the rank is less than or equal to 0, then we don't need to do this. We just use the tracker value and the target. If the rank is greater than 8, then the player has reached the max rank, so we can set the progress bar frames to 100%. To get the frames for the animation sequence, usually do it by calculating frames, which is FPS times the number of seconds, the length of the animation. In my case, this was 300, but it wasn't aligning properly to the end of the animation, so you might need to experiment based on your progress bar. I found around 250 to work for what I needed, but this might differ from case to case. we set the playback frame on the sequencer and then toggle pause on the sequencer. We then spawn another thread and call pause frame, where I pass in the frame. In pause frame, I'm sleeping for 10 millionth of a second. You can experiment here. This was probably overkill, but I set the player sequencer playback frame to the same frame and toggle pause again. And that's all the code. For those who just want plug and play, you can find all these assets and files on Patreon. So here you can see the progress bar isn't really aligned well. I included some footage of me going back and forth editing the alignment. And so you'll see that here. If you know a better way to do this, let me know. I feel like there should be a better way to identify where your widget device is on the user interface. But I save and compile and go back into the game to test. The frames were scuffed a little bit as well, so I changed it back to 250. The animation was fixed, but the position was still off a little, so I try a couple of times here trying to get the alignment to where I want. But as you're messing around with the script and the code, depending on where you want to position the progress bar and the rank system, you probably go through the same process as well. Finally, I was able to get it to a satisfactory position. And that's it for the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Make sure to use code shaanprime in the item shop. Thanks for the support.